you for the prettiest cover.
Oh, thank you. I was so thrilled by that cover.
Oh,
Like, and
this
that was
cover was
all.
great. I mean, I feel like it captured their personality so good.
The only complaint I had was so funny was I was like, can you make him a little bigger? We had
Oh,
actually
yeah,
the
he's
first
big.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
first iteration of this cover, she was a skinny mini. She was a very like skinny little, and I was like, this is a beautiful cover if you want to get me canceled. Like if you want because
Got me canceled.
she
Yeah.
was not that little skinny mini heroine was not a
No.
reflection of who
Real
Alex and I
real women,
wrote.
and I was here for all of that. If you know my background, you know that. Well, we're live, so hey Amazon, welcome back. Hey, this is Angelina M. Lopez. If you have not read any of her books, first of all, I don't know why this isn't on everyone's shelf right now and not everyone's talking about it, because this is the most spiciest, funniest, like angsty in some ways. I just really fell into this, and it was one of those books that I couldn't stop thinking about. And I actually saw someone else post that too on TikTok. They're like, I couldn't stop thinking about that book. And I'm like, I thought it was just me, but it's not. This is one of the best books I've read in 2022, and I'm so excited to talk about this with you and hear about what you're working on and just all the juicy details behind this one. So, welcome to the live, Angelina.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really thrilled to be here. And you and I have so much in common, so I
It's
feel like we're
crazy.
just gonna like
I
babble
know.
nonstop.
Crazy. We didn't even know that when we met in April.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
it's
such a
wild.
whirlwind trip. I met so many people. I'm sure you did too. And I don't even know if you remember me, but we were
Oh
talking,
yeah.
and I was like, "Oh yeah, you have to be on the show." And this is when your book hadn't even come out or anything, and it just sounded so fabulous. And little did we know, we both like kind of ran similar circles throughout our whole lives. It's crazy. So, love this concept. This is the freshest concept, you guys. I never read a book like this, and I love the history, almost like it wasn't really a dual timeline, but just went back in time and explained. I love generational books. I love family sagas. I love hearing real family stuff too, by the way, not like my family lives on a unicorn riding a rainbow. No, I want to hear the drama. I want to hear the hard stuff, spill the tea. And you really hit that in this book. And then also, we've got like the nerdy professor, and we have the alpha heroine. We were just talking about that, and I feel like that is the new. That's it. That's the new trope that we're all like, yes. I mean, alpha males, okay. But bring me an alpha female who's like, I don't need you.
Yeah, 100%. It was funny because my tagline is I write sexy stories about strong women and worthy men. And in my first book, my debut book of 2019 called Lush Money, I write a self-made billionaire Mexican American businesswoman. And so it really helped me establish early on like this idea of like that whole book was written about what does a billionaire look like? What does a woman look like when a woman has all the power? What does that power look like when a woman wields it? And so it really helped me kind of organically come into what was important to me about books. And so it's something I've just maintained. This is book 4 now. It's a first in a new series. Milagro Street's going to be a 3-book series, all standalones, but
Just take my money right now. Just put my card on file.
there's 3 sisters, and so each book is going to feature one sister's love story. And but
Who
it
is
it
next?
Jillian, the oldest sister, is a
Okay.
very perfect DC wife and mom who is now divorced and has to come home for the summer. So
I love
yeah.
your references. You're like, she's a Peloton mom. I'm like, I'm a Peloton mom too.
That's the kind of stuff I love that make
Yeah.
these books and these people and these characters come alive for both me and I hope the reader. But it allowed me to establish early on, that this is really important to me. The idea of there's a lot of ways we enter romance books as authors, and a lot of things to create that journey, that character arc for any of our characters. It's like, where do they start and where do they end up? And so often in romance, we started the book as this is a woman who appears on the page weak, and we make her
Mhm.
strong. And that is 100% a valid way to approach a romance novel. But I just wanted to do something different. I wanted women that roared on the page and had other problems they needed to manage other than like their own personal insecurities or things that they needed a man to come and fix. And so, my characters, my heroines always have big arcs and big journeys, but one of them generally isn't a weakness that they have to overcome, which is
Yeah.
it's fun. It's fun to play with.
Oh, I mean, we don't do spoilers on here because I know a lot of you guys are buying this right now and reading it, and I don't want to ruin that for you because there were surprises in this that I even saw in reviews where people are like, whoa. And so I felt like this was beyond romance, even more women's fiction too, because you had
Yeah.
so much depth in this about stigmas, about Hispanic women, and the racism and the things that we go through as women and as you
Yeah.
go through as a Mexican American woman, where
Yeah.
people just assume that you're not from here. And it's so weird because I am an Irish American woman. I wouldn't necessarily say I came from Ireland because that was
Yeah.
several generations ago. So why would people assume you just came from Mexico and I just came from Ireland, but we have the same generations here?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And that's still happening. No one says to me, "Where did you originally come from?" Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
here? And so can you talk a little bit about that? What that is like, breaking down those stigmas, those barriers, and bringing that Mexican American culture to life, and how it's even older. I mean, so you said early 1900s. Well,
Yeah.
my grandma came here in the 20s to Ellis
Yeah.
Island. So you're older here than me.
Yeah. My husband is, white Swedish American. Swedish American only in that he knows his family came from Sweden. He knows nothing else about anything Swedish, but his same thing. It was his grandfather who moved here. Where I'm third generation. Was my great great grandmother or great grandmother who came here. Her generation that came, and she came as an infant. And so I'm actually longer in the United
Yeah.
States than my, white husband. And it's a question that nobody asked, but it really did center that I was born and raised in Southeast Kansas and in the Midwest generally. And, we had piñatas at birthday. I have a large Mexican American family, multi-generational, but have been in Southeast Kansas since the early 1900s. And we would have piñatas at birthday parties, and we would have huge Sunday dinners after mass with
Yeah.
tortillas and tamales. My grandmother was this amazing cook,
Oh,
lots of Mexican food. And I didn't know that this wasn't an experience that everyone shared. And growing up 70s and 80s, that it was this unique experience, this access to homemade Mexican food and just a lot of this, culture. I didn't know that it was a unique experience for people, especially in the Midwest. And it took me to move away and to realize how unique experience that was, and then to get questioned on it.
yeah.
And it was a question I would get asked: "Where are you from?" "Kansas." "No, where?" And my pen name, Angelina M. Lopez, that's my real name. So Lopez, my skin, my face. "Where are you from?" "Kansas." "No, no, no. Where are you originally from?" And I go, "Kansas." Like,
Which is a
and it was the
strange
sense
question to.
that me being an American and my heritage that's amazingly important to me was somehow erased by these people because of the assumptions they made. And so it was an opportunity when we were looking at my first series was done. What next? And I was like, this story, is unique. This large Mexican American family in the Midwest. It's unique. It's important to me. And a little bit, I was mad. Like I wanted to push back against people trying to make me feel like I didn't belong here. And we were culturally in a place, we were coming up in one of the elections. I can't remember when I was writing this, but we were culturally in a place where there was a lot of otherism happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, we have been a diverse place and a diverse country for a very long time. And the world is made more magical because of that diversity. And so, all of that stuff, I have been a lifelong romance reader, a lifelong romance supporter. And I think romance books can do so much while offering escapism,
A
over the
different
top,
point of view.
yeah, diversity, high heat love stories. you can do all of that and still talk about these things that are important to you. So that's why I threw in like everything and the kitchen
Yeah.
sink into this book.
You really did, but it was so good to read that because I felt like, for context for people that aren't from the Midwest, like Angelina and I are both from Kansas, early 1900s is like the beginning of Kansas. Like if you're from the East Coast, 1600s, that's
Yeah.
like you go into those New England towns and it says established 1600s. That didn't exist here in Kansas. And that did not. Like this was I think I was joking with my husband the other day. I was like, in Oklahoma 400 years ago. He's like, nothing existed here. So your family essentially pioneered this area and brought the you talked about that in the book, like the railroad. And I was talking to another author about you. I cannot remember who it was, but we were talking about our top 10 favorite books, and she brought up your book, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm having her on the show in a few weeks, and I hadn't read your book yet.
Yeah.
And she was explaining she mixed it up though. She goes, I didn't know all that about Oklahoma. And I was like, wait a minute, it's about Oklahoma? And then I started reading it. I'm like, even better, it's about Kansas. And so what people don't understand is the early 1900s in this area was the beginning for like what you see as American now. Before that, it was mostly Native. It was mostly, and that's still a huge part of this area. Huge.
Yeah.
And,
Huge.
I mean, part of that Kansas area that you wrote about is almost near a reservation. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I actually live technically on a reservation. When we signed our new homeowners paperwork this year, we had a sign acknowledging that we live on a reservation.
Yeah.
This is not ours. This is theirs. And
yeah,
that's
Southeast
so
Kansas,
cool.
Northeast Oklahoma, a lot of that. Yeah. You
Mhm.
and you like out of Caney, like between where I wrote this book and Tulsa, you had these tremendous and like intense like wealth by Native Americans who were getting oil rights and
It's such a unique place to visit and see.
Yeah.
And I did not even, I'm embarrassed to say, I did not know that about the Mexican American culture in that Southeast Kansas area. So I learned so much reading this. I think that's why I was so fascinated in digging into it, that I was like, this is so great. Yeah, I mean, if you want to dig into a little more history and read about things that aren't like us, which is what I want, then this is just a fantastic book. So who did your audio narration?
Her name is, I'm about to say my first narrator. Her name is, I'm totally blanking. I can
That's
find
okay.
it
I got
for
you.
real
Stacey
quick.
Gonzalez.
No, Stacey Gonzalez. Thank you. Yeah, Stacey Gonzalez, who's done a ton of books.
Yeah.
She just did a really big one
Let me look.
that I'm also blanking on.
Duke actually?
Yeah. She did Duke Ackley, and she
Did Rayanne Thane?
You know what? She also did the Taylor Jenkins Reid one, the one that's kind of a controversial.
The one
Carmen
that came out, the
Carmen Santos.
I haven't read it yet, but
Yeah.
I did see that interview on Good Morning America. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But she does. She's a huge narrator. She did a phenomenal job on this. It was so funny because the grandmother in this book is based on my own grandmother to an extent. The book is not in any way autobiographical. It's inspired, but it's not autobiographical. But the grandmother in the grandmother's house is very much based on my own grandmother.
I loved her house. It took me back to my grandma's house.
That is my grandma. I mean, that is like to the stud, my grandmother's house.
I mean, they had those hard conversations, but she's still like, you can come home.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then you hear, so you had that moment, and I don't want to do spoilers, because I know you guys are buying this. I can see the books going up. But when, you saw that piece of the story, and then I hope I don't cry now. So then at the end, when she was like explaining like why she went away and stuff, I don't know. I had a lot of feelings reading this book. I was angry. I was like, like heartbroken. And at the same time, like you just want to go back to like 16-year-old Alex and give her a hug and just be like, it's okay, because you saw her go through so much in this book, and yet she is such a baddie. She's so strong. That's what I'm telling you guys. This alpha Heroine is where it's at, and I really hope you're bringing that with book 2 and 3.
Oh, always. Well, and that's it. It's unfamiliar sometimes in romance to see the heroine show up unapologetically on the page.
And own their sexuality.
Own their anger, own their goals. I have a
Yeah.
goal and I am going unrelentingly for it. And I center myself in my story. I'm not thinking about what everyone else needs. I'm thinking about what I need. When you have a man show up on the page like that, it's understood, it's accepted, we're accustomed to
Yeah.
it. We're unaccustomed to a woman. And so the pushback on who Alex is when she shows up on the page has been real. It always has been. But because she shows up so fiercely on the page, there is that arc to us understanding why, and the hurt that all of that ferocity is, you know, covering up and grown over had to be really, really intense. And again, no spoilers, but there had to be a real, real raw pain. And again, something that Jeremiah, our hero,
Yeah.
was able to understand and finally, get to be part of. He's the one that she first kind of unveils herself to. And that ferocity to the vulnerability, that journey is what I love to read. Therefore, it's what I love to
Yeah.
write. And so there is pushback about the way Alex shows up on the page. But my kind of central thesis is we need to show women that their journey is not about weakness to strength.
Yep.
Their journey is a billion other ones,
Yep.
but that it is that we need to have our heroines showing up unapologetically. If they need to change, they can change. If they need to learn, they do learn, but it's through their own lens and not because other people are telling them what to do. And so, yeah, I hope that moment of her vulnerability needed to be, I hope people feel it emotionally like I felt it, because you need that, because she does show up fiercely and ferociously on the page.
He
Yeah,
does.
and
He
obviously
comes
owning her
out
sexuality.
swinging, you guys, and you're just like, what? Where did you come from? And also, that whole like mean bartender thing was hilarious. I I don't think I've ever like identified with someone more because I'm a very sassy, very I don't know. Like my son will say, "Was that passive aggressive?" I'm like, "No, that was aggressive." That's my
Oh my God,
personality.
I love that.
And I'm a lot, so I feel like I've always been told I'm a lot, so maybe that's why I like reading these characters that are a lot, because it's me. I'm on the page aggressive.
Good.
You should use
You
that in a book. Is that
should.
aggressive? Is that passive aggressive? No, it's aggressive.
It's aggressive. No, I will use that. That is fabulous. Yeah, I think we as women, outside of romance, outside of books, we as women are expected to show up accommodating other people, and it doesn't all obviously we all have to get along in the world, but a lot of times us constantly accommodating others, it doesn't serve us and it
Oh no,
doesn't serve
breaks
others.
it.
We show up as caretakers all the time anyway. To be the best caretaker, we need to show up centering ourselves, that we are to be able to take care of other people and manage all this stuff. We have to center our own selves. And so there is there's always a feminist edge to kind of what
Yeah,
I'm writing, and this kind of like rough, the world is rough on women. It still is, and it apparently is not getting any easier. So I want to show these heroines showing up and really, really, fighting for themselves.
absolutely. And also, I love that unapologetically, like you said, owning yourself. And
Yeah.
like you said, you don't have to make them weak to good, weak to strong. And I feel like that's become a trope thing in traditional publishing sometimes, where you have to fit in this box. Well,
Hmm.
that box is broken.
Yeah.
It's overstuffed, and we need to weed it out, and
Yeah.
let the cream rise to the top. The books that pull the strengths and show a different dynamic and show a
Yeah.
different way, those are the books I want to read. And so
Yeah.
I'm so excited for your. Can you talk about book 2 a little, or is it too soon?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, right. It's called Full Moon Over Freedom. It's going to be out
Oh,
July.
I
Yeah.
didn't think you were going to tell me the title. Now,
Oh, I've been
now I'm like
talking
so
about it.
excited.
Yeah, Full Moon Over Freedom. It's out July 2023, and it's about the oldest sister, Jillian. So Jillian's,
Yep.
they call her the pride of the East Side. So she's the one who got out. She got a full ride to an almost Ivy in Boston. She becomes the perfect DC wife and mom, married to this trust fund attorney, and then she gets divorced, and why she gets divorced. And she's got two children, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and has to come back home to freedom for the summer, back home to from, DC gorgeous townhome back home to small town Southeast Kansas and live with her parents because she can't find work. She's a financial planner, she's got a master's degree in finance and can't find a job because of 6 years out of the working world as
Which
a
is such
mom.
a thing for a lot of us moms.
Very huge. It's huge, and it's a real issue.
Yeah.
Comes home, and when she does, the first day home, runs into Nikki Mendoza. Nikki Mendoza was a childhood friend turned teenage bad boy who after her freshman year in college, she comes home just for the summer and asks Nikki to help her lose her virginity. That she's like, look, I demand the best for my brain. I want the best for my body. I don't want a boyfriend. I just want a sex teacher. And Nikki is like,
He's up for the job.
begrudgingly agrees, and
Begrudgingly agrees? Ooh.
well, in her perception, it's begrudgingly.
Yeah.
So they spend this hot summer together after her freshman year in college. Now, 13 years later, she runs back home, and Nikki's the man she runs into, expecting to never ever see him again. And now they're end up stuck together for the summer. With having to redo a lot of misconceptions, and one of them being Nikki Mendoza has loved her since the second he saw her in the 5th grade, and she never has ever, even through 3 months of sex teaching, she's never ever ever known.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait. That sounds so good. Now it's a long time. Well, I'm still excited. I feel like this series is going to be so good. I can't stop talking about your book. I feel like maybe you're going to get a restraining order and be like, could you stop? Another TikTok, and I'm like, should I tag her?
Please. Yes, everyone. I always want people to tag me. I love seeing it. I love resharing it. It is huge for an author. It's so funny that it is such a world of, social media and online, but we're still the authors in our little dark caves, all alone at our computers. And the only time we know that people are talking about it is when they let us know they're talking. We're still the authors sitting at home wanting the little letter to come into the mail saying, I love your book. I mean, it feeds us because while it feels like we're doing this very social thing, we're not. We're sitting at home alone, usually in yoga pants or sweats, in our caves, writing for hours and hours. And so I'm please, I love hearing from readers because we don't know what effects these have without hearing from them.
I think it gives some women permission to, maybe the woman that's been told you're too much or stop being too much, and they try to push you down a little. Then they see these heroines on the page and they're like, it's okay to be too much because that's who I am.
Exactly.
And other women like me, it's okay to be aggressive,
Yeah.
And I think I always get so mad because anytime I say something, it's like, oh, as a woman, you're being aggressive. And it's like, no, I'm being assertive. And if a man said that, he would be assertive. And if I say that, I'm being aggressive. And it's like, no, that's being a professional.
Yeah.
And so I feel like seeing yourself on the page is so important, and you're bringing these strong women, and also to, the Latina culture, like you're bringing this whole world that we're not seeing enough of, and that means a lot. I watched a TikTok that you did recently, and it was a hard one to watch. I just my heart was clenched as I watched it. It was the end of August one you made about representing, and how hard and heavy it is right now for you and a lot of other Latina writers that this is hard. So can you talk a little bit about that, like how this passion project is for you, how important this work is?
Yeah, again, I mean, it really comes with this concept of I am an American. I am 100% fully, my country is going through so much turmoil and its ups and downs, but I am firmly an American. I'm firmly proud of it. And that's something that I was taught within my Mexican American family, was this idea of place and care and love for this community in Southeast Kansas and this community of people. And it wasn't, we only, for the whole community and everyone in it. And to be treated as though, you just go on this shelf, or you're just honored on this month, or you can't be from there because of the melanin in our skin. If we think about, racism biases, it is a it is based on a chemical reaction in our skin, which is just one of the wildest, dumbest, craziest things you could ever think about. And so this idea of otherism based on that, and it trickles down into the, you know, the publishing world. And so being represented as a writer, getting to publish our stories as a writer, getting people within the publishing industry at all levels, agenting and editing, and at the executive level, who understand our stories and represent our stories and who look like us too. We want more diversity within the executive. Getting that all in there and seeing time and time again stories where our stories about being, you know, Mexican American United States, about being any, you know, whether you call Latin, Latinx, Latina, or Hispanic in the United States, having those stories written by white writers who say, I've done the research, but
Yeah.
they're not us. They haven't had our lived experience. And seeing those stories written by white writers, powerful white writers, and published by powerful white writers when they haven't lived this experience. And then the argument is, well, you know, should they be restrained on what they can write? We're not saying what should or shouldn't. What we're saying is we're finally getting an opportunity to tell our stories after being limited for decades to
Yeah.
tell those stories. So we're not saying whether it should or shouldn't. We're saying, give us a break, step back. Let us do that for a while, especially when it's the people writing stories are these massive, you know, they already have the audience, they already have the bookshelf placement, they already have the spot on Amazon. We're saying, step aside. People will buy your books no matter what you're writing about. So with this lived experience about being a Latina in this world, step aside and let us tell those stories. Because for so long, you as a writer, and I hope I'm not talking to you, I'm
No,
talking to
no,
you
absolutely.
published
Yeah.
authors. But for decades, you as a white writer have been able to write about whatever you want.
Yeah.
Step aside and let us tell those stories now that we are finally, after decades of not getting to say what we wanted, finally getting a foot in the door. Let us tell them. And readers, read our stories, buy our stories.
Bookfluencers
That is
share these
struggling with right now.
stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Let us tell the stories from our lived experiences. And this is a great example of a lived experience book that isn't
Yeah.
just about that lived experience. I hope
Oh,
the
it's
main thing,
life.
yeah,
Life.
and I never wanted anyone to feel preached to. I
Nope.
wanted to tell what, you know, you step back and you don't think about diversity.
Yeah.
What's just a story about a Mexican American woman who grew up in Southeast Kansas and falls in love. What's important about the most important, this book is a romance novel, is that it's a romance novel. It's about a woman falling in love. What is she as a woman, and what are all the things that make that love complicated? I'm doing what anyone would do in any other story, but I'm talking about a lived experience as a particular woman who for decades, not me, but women who look like me, weren't able to tell that story. So we're just asking those powerful white writers to step aside and tell their stories that people will sweep up. Let
Yes.
us tell our own. So that's my little soapbox.
No, I loved it. I learned so much. Well, first of all, I'm a baby author, so I don't really have any experience with like writing a bunch of books, but
You
uh,
will.
I will, and it's important to learn and know better, do better, and have these conversations that are tough. They're tough to
Yeah.
hear, they're tough to have, but we have to have them.
Yeah.
It's
And
sad that we have to have them, but we have to have them.
and
And
I think the
so,
only way it's trying to make it make sense. Like it wasn't fair. The whole system wasn't fair. There's a
yep,
tiny effort at parity right now or equity.
yeah,
Let's help us.
yes,
Help us, you know? And
yep,
so I'm hoping that's something that's easier to hear than where it's all punitive. I don't think talking always in
no,
punitive is what helpful, but like trying to help people understand
yeah,
that it wasn't fair for a long time. When we're getting this window of fairness,
yeah.
let us take advantage of it. You know?
Absolutely. Well, it's not about, I feel like, taking advantage of it, like making it more equal at the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know. I felt like I learned so much from your book just about history. And I love it when I read a book and at the end I'm like still thinking about it and processing it. And all the emotions. First of all, you took me on a roller coaster. I was like angry, steamy, like happy, and then, cheering her on. And then all of a sudden it's like, this book's making me cry. And I'm not a cry. So,
Oh, you're not. Oh,
no,
that
I'm
makes
like
it
that
even
tough girl
better.
that's like, what? I'm like the ride or die tough girl. But this book really did make me feel all the things. And I feel like so many more people can be, like you said, taught lessons through romance books, and it's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. What was really fun too, I had written, I don't know, first 5 chapters, and I realized that I realized like this would be better if they meet in the first chapter. They meet in the first chapter. And I'm like, if they ran into each other this way in the first chapter, I think they're going to do it. I like immediately emailed my editor. I was like, what do you think about them doing it in the first chapter? Knowing that this was going to be a big trade paperback
Yeah,
release, that,
yeah,
all this history, all of this stuff. What do you think about them doing in the first chapter? And she was like, if
yeah.
anyone can make this work, it's you. And so, I wanted to do all this stuff with history and diversity
Hmm.
and all of this, but I also, what's very important to me is high heat books. I think for me, that is an essential part. This physical chemistry is an essential part of falling in love. And so in all my books, they are high heat, descriptive, steamy books. And so it was putting them in the first chapter, and I don't feel like this is spoilery because it's in the first chapter, but putting them, having
Yeah.
sex in the first chapter was an opportunity for me to say, all of this stuff is who you get as Angelina M. Lopez writer. And,
And then
here you
just
go, world.
follow her on Amazon and auto buy all of her books. No, but seriously, Amazon friends, do follow Angelina M. Lopez here on Amazon so that you don't miss out on any of her upcoming releases. I always feel bad when I find an author I really enjoy, and then you get busy, life happens, and then later
Yeah.
on you're like, wait, you wrote 2 more books. Up, I didn't get them. So definitely hit that follow button. If you go to her product page and then click on the hyperlink of her author name, you can follow her, and then Amazon just sends you an email when she has a book come out so that you don't miss out. You can reserve it at your library, grab it on Amazon, grab it wherever you get your books, listen to it on Audible, ebook, paperback, which your paperbacks are beautiful, by the way. Beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Amazon named this a best romance of the month in August too.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that.
so
I also love that you have real size women. I did that with my book too. Is I was like, I need her to be normal sized, and my book designer did a great job. And I need all my people to be normal. I don't. I don't.
yeah.
Gone is the. I just want to be relatable on the page. I want to see characters I feel like I relate to, as you write who you relate to, and I think that's really important. So I loved that she was curvy. I love that she was short because I'm short too. And so, there's always, I love that. So I always like to ask this too. What advice would you have for an aspiring author?
I think the big thing is, people always wonder, like, what's the magic? What's the magic of writing a book? What's the magic? And there is no magic other than your butt in the chair. It is the least romantic, the least interesting. This is not magic. It is not muse. It is not inspiration. It is pure discipline and diligence that you sit your butt in the chair and you start on page 1, and then whatever your goal, 50,000 to 85, 100,000 words later, you have finished book. That finished book is going to be awful. You revise it a couple of times, and if it's your very first ever written book, I recommend you got to put that book under the bed. You got to write the second book. You got to write a third book. A lot of people, there's a sense that you can kind of shortchange romance novels or shortchange becoming a romance author because there is tropes and because there is a formula to it.
Yep.
Nobody expects to sit down at the piano and play a concerto. Writing and fiction writing is an art form, and you need to practice to get good. So I really recommend putting that first book you complete under the bed. Um, your first draft, you want to try to write it as quick as you possibly can, knowing that you can revise. You have to be able to lean into revisions. Right at the beginning, just figuring out who these people are and what they're doing and what the plot is the whole goal of a draft. You want that draft to be ugly and messy and awful. You really kind of zone down on thematically what you're doing in your revisions. And so people who really, I just really, really recommend do not, angst too much about that first. They're just, I realize how difficult what I'm saying is, but just try to get the first draft finished. You fix it in revisions. And that is the biggest, that was the hardest thing for me to learn. I thought I was a plotter, which meant, I start with an outline, all of that. I'm not. I'm firmly a pantser, which means I write by the seat of my pants with like a few details, but I just go. But I write in revisions. That's really when I do my writing. And I think you give yourself a lot more freedom and permission just to make mistakes. But the most important thing you can have is a completed manuscript, a first draft. For the first draft is something you can really work on. So butt in chair and write messy.
Oh, great advice. Great advice. Well, where else can we find you and support you online?
Best place is my website, www.angelinamlopez.com. I put anytime I show up in the media, it's on there, and I do blogging on there. So I talk about my books, I talk about the background. I do a lot of writing tips in those as well, and I do still enjoy blogging, even though it's, nobody else does. But then outside of that, I'm at Angelina M. Lowe on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at author Angelina M. Lopez on TikTok, and then Angelina M. Lopez writer on Facebook. So I always include my middle initial, Angelina M, because Angelina Lopez is like the Jane Smith of the Latina world.
I know. I think I got your email wrong like a million times, and I felt so. I'm like, I should be better than this, but I was like double checking it. I'm like, get that M in there.
It's got to have that M in there, Angelina M. Lopez. Yeah, and then if I love to hear from readers if they have any questions, if they're interested in anything, they can email me at readers@angelinamlopez.com. I'm everywhere.
I get her reviews up on Amazon, so she hits this algorithm because this book is so good, you guys. Leave her an Amazon review. Just some stars and love, and just leave her a review on Goodreads, Amazon, and leave her some love. I know that really matters as an author. It matters to me. I know it matters to you. We like to see those reviews, even if you don't enjoy it, which that's impossible. You will love it. Just leave her a little bit of love. That does help out our authors so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was so much fun.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much, Erin.
So much. Well, you have to come back next summer when your new one comes out, because
I would love to. That would be fabulous.
Ready for pre-order. I'm in.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to.
Awesome. Well, stand by one moment. Amazon, be sure to follow Angelina M. Lopez here on Amazon and check out her website and all the places on social. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to tune in. I'm doing a live cooking segment at 1 today, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys. Okay, 1 second.